Cheers. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. Yesterday I played for Whidbey Island it was a much smaller library than this, and they had to bring in every chair that they had ever seen. I think there were other stores were bringing chairs by. There were people sort of walking down the block. So anyway, this is nice when we're all comfortable here. Just before this, I was in Montana and Wyoming. Before that, they stuck me in Arizona. It was like 117 degrees. I don't recommend that. That was a horrible idea. And then before that was Nebraska and Kansas, basically all of these landlocked states. Well, I play seafaring songs sometimes. They just had no idea what that is. So I'm thrilled to be here in Washington, where you have at least some idea of what I'm doing. I thought that perhaps we could start off with a sea shanty. And I know that most of you will know about sea shanties here, but I'm so accustomed to explaining them by now that I'll just go ahead and tell those of you who don't. So years ago, those tall ships like you've seen in Pirates of the Caribbean, or for the older audience, I'm not looking at anybody, Captain Blood and Mutiny on the Bounty. Anyway, on board those tall ships, there wasn't any machinery to speak of. It was all manpower. So if they wanted to hoist sails, weigh anchor, pump the bilge pumps, it's just a bunch of sailors pulling on the lines together. And so that they could hoist on the lines in unison, on the larger ships was a shantyman. Now the shantyman's job is to sing a sea shanty so simple and repetitive that drunken sailors can join in on the chorus. They can all hoist on the lines together, right? So of course they go all around the world with these. They get out to the doldrums. There's not much to do except come up with filthy verses, none of which I'll be performing for the library. But I thought perhaps it would be fun to start off with a capstan shanty. Let's do Holloway Joe. When I was a little lad and saw me mother told me, where Holloway Joe, that if I did not kiss the girls, my lips would grow all moldy. Where Holloway Joe, where Holloway, about the bada, where Holloway Joe. King Louis was the king of France before the Revolution. Where Holloway Joe. But then he got his head cut off, which spoiled his constitution. Where Holloway Joe. Hey, don't you see the black cloud rising? Where Holloway Joe. St. Patrick was a decent man, he came from decent people. Where Holloway Joe. He built a church in Ireland and on its a steeple. Where Holloway Joe. From Ireland then he drove the snakes and he drank up all the whiskey. Where Holloway Joe. Which made him sing and dance a jig, healthy, fine and frisky. Where Holloway Joe. Where Holloway, our good ship now was rolling. Where Holloway Joe. Where Holloway, upon the bad weather. Where Holloway Joe. Well, thanks very much. When I'm not performing for a Scottish festival or another large festival or convention, I love to come and play at libraries. Librarians often want me to make it a bit educational, so I get the opportunity to talk about some of the antique and traditional instruments I have with me, as well as Celtic culture, which is a good time. So that's why I chose to begin our evening here off with that most traditional of all Celtic instruments. Steeped in history is the shaker pineapple. You're all coming along with me. I like that. And this actually does have a Scottish origin for me personally. I was playing at the Scottish Games in Hawaii, and I had a normal shaker on stage, but I get kind of exuberant, as you will see, and it exploded. Little beads went everywhere, and they pitched in. They gave me this. So. Well, let's do something that is traditional. For those of you who know your Scottish history, you might be familiar with the 42nd Regiment, the 42, also known as the Black Watch, and they gained quite a bit of notoriety in the last World War. And for those of you who aren't familiar with them, think of today's modern warfare and the body armor the lads go into battle with. Well, these lads, it's the only active regiment that still wears the kilt into battle. So these are pretty raw lads. well, imagine they've been given these fantastic nicknames, uh, most of which I probably shouldn't share with you at the library as it occurs to me. The mildest of which is the ladies from hell. So this is a good introduction to them. This is an old marching song of theirs. It's a recruiting song, and if you listen closely, you'll see that times haven't changed much over the years. They say, "Enlist with us and see the world." That's the same as we say today. They say, "Enlist with us because the farmer you're working for is not going to pay you, so you should come away with us." And they say, "Feel free to. There's lots of space if you'd like to come in." And anyway, they say, "Enlist with us because the farmer that you're working for is not going to pay you, so you should come away with us." And they say, "Enlist with us because the lass you've been dating, she's catching up to you. And if you enlist with us, we'll send you overseas, and that will solve that." To our good sergeants come thread the black watch, to markets and fairs on goods for catch, and all that they listed was 14 and list of them they lord him all, and it's over the mountains of the names. Gibraltar, the France and Spain, get a feather tie upon it, and a Kilted in your name. And list of them they lord him on me. Ella, he didn't count the danger that you're in. If your horse was the flag and your innocent was the ring, this greedy old foreigner, he would pay your fee. And list of them the Lord in all with me. And it's over the mountains of Tasmania, from Gibraltar to France and Spain, get a feather tie upon it, and a Kilted in your name. And list of them the Lord in all with me. Ellie, if you've got a sweetheart and a pine, your legs like a rod of that elf-spun yarn, 'twas all the drums, oh, that'll pay it all. And list of them, they lord him all. And it's over the mountains of the plain, from Gibraltar to France and Spain, get a feather tie upon it, and a Kilted in your name. And list of them they lord him on the way. All right, here we go with the educational portion of our evening. So, does anyone happen to know what this instrument is? A concertina. I love a well-educated audience. That's fantastic. This is, in fact, a concertina. It's a wee cousin to the accordion. And there are two major kinds of concertina in the world. There's an English and an Anglo. And on the English, the notes are different on the pull than they are on the push. So it's a bit like playing a harmonica. And on the Anglo, the notes are the same on the pull and the push, but to play a scale, you play one note on every other side. And they set up both of those systems so that you can play very fast. If you go to Ireland, they're just ripping through tunes trying to kill dancers because there's a surplus of dancers in Ireland, as we all know. This is neither of those. This is a Haydn duet. You'll probably never see another one of these because I've got two entirely different scales on both sides so that I can play two different harmonies and sing a third melody, and basically nobody wants to do that. So they don't build very many of these. But to give you an idea of how it works, I'll play just half of it so that you can watch my fingers. But we've come to your first audience decision. I can either do an Irish tune set for you, or I can do a Scottish tune set for you. So all those in favor of an Irish tune set? All those in favor of a Scottish tune set? I think it might be a Scottish tune set, just by a nose. It was awfully close. Well then, let's do Liberty and Over the Waterfall and Sing Tanzania. since we did the Scottish tune set, we have to do something to appease the Irish in the room, and that would probably be a drinking song, wouldn't it? So I always start with the same toast. It's a long-standing tradition. May those that love us, and those that do not love us, may they learn to love us. And if they do not learn to love us, may God twist their ankles so that we may know them by their limping. So in County Cork, there was a pub. They were trying to sell this hard cider, but it was dreadful. It was horrible stuff. And so they couldn't sell it naturally, and they talked to a musician. They said, do you suppose you could write us a ditty, see if it would help us to sell this? And he did, and it did. And now it's quite famous. It still tastes foul, if you ask me, but people buy it all the time, probably as a result of this song. So this is evidence that for many years, there's been no such thing as bad publicity. Well, I'll tell you a story that happened to me. One day as I went down to Cork on the lake, the sun it was bright and the day it was warm. Says I, a quick pint wouldn't do me no harm. So I went and ordered a bottle of stout. Said the bartender, sorry, the beer's all sold out. Try whiskey, young laddie, 10 years and above. Says I'll try cider, I've heard that it's good. But I'll never again if I let it be 100 or 110. I fell to the ground and I could not get up. After drinking a pint of the Johnny Jump Up. After downing a third, I went out to the yard. But I bumped into Brophy, the big civic guard. Come there to me, lad, don't you know I'm the law? Well, I up with my fist and I shattered his jaw. He fell to the ground, his knees doubled up. And wasn't I that hit him, was the Johnny Jump Up. The next thing I know, I'm down to Cork on the lay. Was a cripple on crutches, and says he to me, I'm afeard for me life, I'll be hit by a cart. Don't you help me across to the highwayman's bar. But after a sip of the cider so sweet, he threw down his crutches and danced on his feet. But I'll never again if I let it be 100 or 110. I fell to the ground and I could not get up after drinking a pint of the Johnny Jump Up. Well, a man died in the Union by the name of McNabb, and they dressed him and they laid him outside on the slab. And after the coroner his measurements to take, his wife took him home for a bloody 5 weeks. Well, the clock it struck 12, and the beer it was high, when the corpse he sat up, and he says with a sigh, I can't get to heaven, they won't let me up, till I bring them a pint of the Johnny Jump Up. So I'll never again if I let it be 100 or 110. I fell to the ground and I could not get up after drinking a pint of the Johnny Jump Up. So a sailor goes into the pub, and behind him comes in a pirate, and the pirate looks a little worse for the wear. He's got a peg leg, a hook for a hand, a patch over his eye. Sailor turns around, looks at him, he says, geez, man, what happened to you? And the pirate says, because they start all of their sentences, right? I went overboard in a gale and a shark took me leg. And the sailor says, oh, that's horrible. He said, what happened to your hand? And the pirate says, I was in a sword fight. They cut me hand clean off. And the sailor says, geez, that's terrible. He said, what happened to your eye? And the pirate says, a seagull pooped in it. And the sailor says, what do you mean to tell me you lost your eye because a seagull pooped in it? And the pirate says, well, it was the first day of having me hook. Oh, all right. Back to toasts then. As you slide down the banister of life, may the splinters never point in the wrong direction. So after all of that, we should do something sweet and traditional and Scottish, I'd say. So this is the lullaby that my mother used to sing to me. Fear not, it never put me to sleep either. You're all safe. And sing along if you know the words. Oh, the summertime has come, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme throws a run of bloom and heather. Will you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the bloom and heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will range through the wild, and the deep glens it read, to return with my spoils to the bower, oh my dearie. Will you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the bloom and heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love she'll not go, I would surely find another, where the wild mountain thyme goes around the bloom and heather. Will you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the bloom and heather. Will you go, lassie, go? All right, who here has been to Nova Scotia? Both of you, I see. All right, well, if you get a chance to get up to, I suppose from here it's nearly to get over to Nova Scotia, then I recommend that you look up some fiddling, because the best fiddlers in the world are up that way. It's amazing. And we're going to slip this one into a Celtic music presentation, because Nova Scotia, as we all know, means, of course, New Scotland. Nova Scotia, the sea on coast, that your mountains dark and dreary. For I'm far away from the briny ocean tossed, will you ever breathe a sigh or a wish for me? The sun it was setting in the west, the birds sang on every tree, and though nature seemed inclined for its rest, but still there is never a rest for me. Farewell, Nova Scotia, the sea on coast, that your mountains dark and dreary. For when I am far away from the briny ocean tossed, will you ever breathe a sigh or a wish for me? I grieve to leave my nation home, I grieve to leave my comrades bold, and my parents that I love so well, and the bonny lass that I do adore. Farewell, Nova Scotia, the sea long coast, that your mountains dark and dreary. For when I am far away from the briny ocean tossed, will you ever breathe a sigh or a wish for me? the drums they do beat, and the wars they do run. Our captain calls, and we must go away. Farewell, farewell to Nova Scotia's charms, it's early in the morning and far, far away. Farewell, Nova Scotia, the sea uncles, and your mountains dark and drear I be. For when I am far away from the bright ocean toss, will you ever a sigh or a wish for me? Will you ever a sigh or a wish for me? Thanks kindly. This one is easy. This instrument was made in this country. This is a mandolin, and this particular one is a Gibson A, and it's 106 years old this year. I hope I get that reaction when I'm 106 years old. So, did you hear about the pirate ship that crashed upon the shoals with a cargo of red paint and black paint? The whole crew is marooned. It was terrible. Well, you seem like a pretty enthusiastic and energetic audience. I was thinking it might be time for an audience participation song. So, if I sing to you a chorus, will you sing it back to me? Is that a fair bargain? Here we go, then. It goes like this. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery pangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Have you got it? Hit it? You want it again? All right, here we go. It's hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery pangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. This will go easier if you move your lips. All right, we'll do it one more time for the people on the balcony. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Excellent. I saw a lot more lips moving that time. Thank you. For those of you still struggling with this, there's a wee bit we tack on to the end that absolutely everyone in the room can do, and it goes like this. Hookable, 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 hoo. But you have to do the shoulders or it doesn't count for anything. So, all together we'll do the chorus and then the hookabas and then straight into the song. It's hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Hookable, 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 hoo. This isn't television. I can see you out there. I just want you to know. All right. We sailed from port the other day, intending to land on Botany Bay, but it happened that we were cast away among the cannibal islands. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Hookable, 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 hoo. Wait a second, there were less people that time than there were the last time. The king invited us up for tea, his name was Torika Chee, and we were as thick today among the cannibal islands. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Hookable, 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 hoo. That was better, that's like 80%, we're getting there, all right. Said the king, will you be my son-in-law and marry the princess which he was? And I will your majesty hold your jaw to the king of the cannibal islands. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Hookable, 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 hoo. All right, there are people who are singing and not hookaboing. That's just not all right. I'll tell you what, we'll up the ante a bit. There's a free bumper sticker in it for the best hookaba in the room. This is your last chance. It's the last verse. The end of my story, it's strange to be told about this mark so brave and bold. He died for meeting his clergyman cold, the king of the cannibal islands. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Wait. Hokey pokey winky wong, Mary magoo agoo agong, hangery bangery bingery bong, the king of the cannibal islands. Hookable, 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 hoo. Well done, well done. Oh dear. I don't know, I think it may be a tie. So there's a lad way in the back there in a black shirt with a cat. You've got a fine huggable going on there, sir. Well done. That's really. And then there's a lass just up with bright red hair. I promise it's not because it's the red hair. It was a good huggable. It really was. So, well done. Congratulations. All right. You thought I was kidding about the bumper sticker, didn't you? Yeah, no. Well, let's do something entirely different after that. Do you know why it is that pirates don't play cards? Well, they're always standing on the deck. Here's an easy one for you. You'll know this. What's a pirate's favorite letter of the alphabet? R. Well, you'd think it would be R, but pirates are actually very fond of the C. You know why it is you don't see pirates in the library? It's because they struggle learning to read. Sometimes they get lost at sea. It's so early on in the alphabet. It's tough to recover. She's just shaking her head. Here we go. Alas, my Lord, you do me wrong to cast me off, discard your For I have loved you for so long, delighting in your company. Prince's is all my joy, Prince's is my heart's delight. Prince's is all my joy, and oh, but my lady, Prince's. Well, this is a bowed psaltery, spelled P-S-A-L-T-E-R-Y. Probably the last time you heard about a psaltery would have been the Old Testament. Was it Saul who was serenaded on psaltery? Now you have been too. Don't you feel important? The psaltery is one of the only chromatic instruments that I have with me on stage today, which means basically that this has the same kinds of keys that a piano would have. So if this were a piano, this would be all of the white keys are the naturals on this side. This would be all the black keys are the accidentals on that side. So I hold the bow in the middle and play across the way like so. So you get a general idea of how the psaltery works. We're in the library. Do any of you read Science Journal? Since I've been spending a lot of time in libraries the last few months, there are all these interesting tidbits that I get. They're studying anteaters now they've discovered that anteaters never get sick. Did anybody else read that? Yeah, they figure they're trying to determine the cause. I guess it would be the cure for the common cold. They figure right now it's probably all the little antibodies. But they don't. There was a poor lass in the back going. All right, here we go. So in Celtic music, we have a long-standing tradition for singing dead depressing lyrics to upbeat, happy tunes. We've been doing this for many years. It works out wonderfully. So this is a perfect example of that. My favorite time for performing this song was at a wee pub nestled high in the mountains of Colorado. And right up next to the stage, there was a table that had 4 individuals that all had at least 2 things in common. One was they were all wearing Go Army t-shirts. And the other was that they all had at least 1 prosthetic limb. And I thought to myself, should I play this song? Should I skip this song? Wow. You probably know me well enough already to know that naturally I played it, and I had quite a few songs left to go in my set, but as soon as I finished this one, they got up from their table, they were right next to the stage, and they sort of stormed the stage and made me stop what I was doing right then and write down the lyrics for them, which I was happy to do. And it's a good story, and I've been telling it for a few years, but then this last year, I was performing at a large Scottish festival, the Longs Peak Scottish-Irish Games, also in Colorado, and a lass came up after one of my sets to buy CDs, which is a grand idea, by the way, and she said, do you know what's interesting? I just came down from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I was visiting to the VA hospital up there, and do you know they're all singing your song? So I have to give credit where it's due. This isn't actually my song. It's a couple of 100 years old, but now I rather think of it as their song. A little light, like a little Timmy autumn rain. My son John was tall and slim, but he had a leg for other. Now he's got no legs at all, both shot away by a cannonball. Autumn rife, had a little light, like a little Timmy autumn rain. Well, by a trunk, I wear a blind, and levy 2 fine legs behind. Wasn't from walking upon the sea, took your legs from the ground in the day. Autumn rife, had a little light, like a little Timmy autumn rain. Well, I wasn't drunk and I wasn't blind, the led my 2 fine legs behind. Was the cannonball on the 5th of May, took my 2 fine legs away. Autumn ripe, had a little light, whack a little Timmy autumn rain. Well, I thought it was not an ounce twixt this King of England and that King of France. Rather my legs as they used to be than the King of Spain and his whole navy. Life, a little life, a little Timmy autumn rain. Well, I was tall and I was slim and I had a leg for other them. Now I've got no legs at all. You can't win a race with a cannonball. Autumn ripe, a little life, a little Timmy autumn rain. Autumn ripe, a little life, a little Timmy autumn rain. Thanks very much. Have we talked about this instrument yet? No? All right. Well, anyone happen to know what this one is? That's exactly right. This is an Irish drum. It's called a bodhrán, spelled B-O-D-H-R-A-N. And it's spelled that way because in Ireland they're very jealous of the Welsh, who get to add L's sort of willy-nilly to words for no apparent reason. So a lot of people ask me about how to play the bodhrán. Are there any painters among you? Do any of you paint? 1, 2, there are 2. All right, well, you have a leg up on everyone else here for playing the bodhrán. You play it with a tipper, and I get my tippers especially made for me out of different lengths and kinds of wood, depending on the kind of tone that I'm looking for. But all of my tippers are unique to me in that they have this thumb rest built in. And that's basically just for me because personally I have a penchant for flinging them into the audience, which I found is detrimental to CD sales at the end of the show. So you hold the boron as you would a painter's palette. And then you hold the tipper as you would a paintbrush, and you paint down. And you paint down. You paint down. You paint down. You do that for a few months, you're good at that. And eventually, when you get good at that, then you paint up. Sounds just like painting down, doesn't it? I know it does. You do that for a few more months, you're good at that. And then eventually you paint down and up, right? Well, there's a lass on the front row eyeing me dubiously, though. She's thinking to herself, he's cheating. There clearly is 2 ends to that tipper and he's only using 1. Well, you're right. When you want to, you throw in the other end and then you get a triplet. That sounds like this. Hear that? Still sounds very boring, though, doesn't it? Very humdrum, if you will. Well, you play the boron with they're falling off of chairs in the back now. Oh. Well, you play the boron with your other hand on the inside, and you use your other hand on the inside to get all of the tone and the pitch. And then it sounds like this. That's all there is to playing the boron. Well, let's do something entirely different after that. Well, it's time for another toast. Where did you get all of this smoke from? My goodness. I've been giving a lot more toasts recently, I have to say. So, an old standard toast for you. This is very traditional. Here's to your enemies' enemies. This song was written by a fine Scotsman by the name of Andy M. Stewart, who passed away just a few short years ago. She's far from the land where young years sleeps, while around her sweet lovers are sighing. But coldly she turns from their wooings and weeps, for her heart with his cold grave is lying. She sings wild songs of her own native home, every note which he so loved awaking. But little I think who delight in her tone, how the heart of this young girl is breaking. Though he lived for his love, it's for his country he died. They were all that to life had entwined him. The tears of his country may never run dry, nor long will his love stay behind him. She sings wild songs of her own native home, every note which he so loved awaking. Ah, but little I think who delight in her tone, how the heart of this young girl is breaking. So make her a grave where the sun goes to rise, think on our glorious tomorrow. May it shine on sleep like a smile from west. Tomorrow, lovely island of sorrow. May it shine on us sleep like a smile from west. From our own lovely island of sorrow. Thanks very much. There are two major kinds of dulcimer today that you'll find. One of them is a hammer dulcimer, which I also play, but it's a bit like carrying a piano around with me, so I don't do it if I don't have to. And the other is a mountain dulcimer, this is also known as an Appalachian dulcimer. And this instrument, while it was created in this country, was created by the immigrants from Scotland and Ireland who have sort of kicked off your country music you have today. So. How are we doing? Oh, not too bad, not too bad. So there was a lad in Washington, and he decided that it was just too damp and he couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to go to vacation to Australia where he could dry out a bit. And he rented a vehicle because he wanted to see as much of it as he could while he was there. But no one warned him about the kangaroos, which are literally everywhere. And they have the big roll cages around the vehicles just so that you don't have terrible accidents. But of course he had one almost immediately, and he was brought back to the hospital unconscious. Wow. He woke up in the hospital bed feeling worse than he'd ever felt in his entire life. And he thought that he was at death's door, but he could barely open his eyes. He sees across the room as a nurse. He says, "Nurse, did they bring me here to die?" And she says, "No, they brought you in just to die." Well, I told they give up in the back. Well, I had to tell you that joke so that I could play this next song. This is a cautionary tale, and it's a very common thing in Celtic music as well. But in this particular one, there was a time where if you stepped a foot out of line, instead of throwing you in jail, they would send you off to Van Diemen's Land. It was called transportation. Think Australia, New Zealand. That's why I told that horrible joke. So anyway, basically, you would get sent off by transportation, and then once you ended up there, it would be entirely populated by criminals, which of course this country was a penal colony as well. So this song is a cautionary tale on how you can avoid this happening to you. Sing along if you know the words. And in each little town they call Belfast, apprentice to trade I was bound. Amazing hours with happiness I spent in that neat little town. When a bad misfortune befell me that caused me to stray from the land, far away from my friends and companions, to follow the black velvet band. Her eyes they shone like a diamond, you'd think she was queen of the land, and her hair over her shoulder, tied up in a black velvet band. As I went strolling one evening, not intending to stray very far, when I met with the frolicsome damsel who was selling her trade at the bar. Well, watch, she pulled from a customer, she slipped it right into my hand. On the very first day that I met her, bad luck to her black velvet band. Her eyes they shone like a diamond, you'd think she was queen of the land, and her hair over her shoulder, tied up in a black velvet band. Well, before the judge and the jury, for trial I had to appear. Well, the gentleman claimed his jewelry, and the case against me was quite clear. Now 7 long years transportation, right down to that Van Diemen's Land. far away from my friends and companions, to follow her black velvet band. Her eyes they shone like a diamond, you'd think she was queen of the land. And her hair hung over her shoulder, tied up with a black velvet band. So come all you jolly young fellows, I'll have you take warning by me. And if ever you're out on the liquor mill, lads, beware of the pretty collie. And I'll fill you with whiskey and porter until you're not able to stand. And the very next thing that you know, me boys, you're landed in Van Diemen's land. Her eyes they shone like a diamond, you'd think she was queen of the land. And her arm over her shoulder, tied up with a black velvet band. So a chicken goes into the library, goes up to the librarian at the circulation desk, looks up soberly and says, "Book." The librarian says, "Excuse me." The chicken says, "Book." The librarian says, "Do you want a book?" The chicken says, "Book." The librarian says, "Okay." She gets a book, hands it to the chicken. Chicken tucks the book under its wing, heads out through the door. About an hour later, the chicken is back, goes up to the librarian at the circulation desk, looks up soberly and says, "Book, book." The librarian says, "Well, now do you want 2 books?" The chicken says, "Book, book." The librarian says, "Okay." She gets 2 books, hands them to the chicken. Chicken tucks the book under each wing, heads out through the door. Well, an hour later, the chicken is back, goes up to the same librarian at the circulation desk, looks up soberly and says, "Book, book, book." The librarian says, "Now do you want 3 books?" The chicken says, "Book, book, book." The librarian says, 2 short books and a long book. I'll be right back." She gets 2 short books, a long book, hands them to the chicken. Chicken tucks the books all under its wings, starts to head out through the door. But by this time, as you can well imagine, the librarian is getting fairly curious. So she follows the chicken. And the chicken takes the books out into the swamp and lies them down in the swamp next to a frog. And the frog looks over the books and says, "Read it." It's a library joke. What do you want from me, eh? I only know one library joke. I get in trouble at libraries. They almost threw me out of a library in Arizona. I drug the "Caution Wet Floor" sign over in front of their 50 Shades of Grey display. That's not my fault. I hadn't read the books. I assumed by the title it was a book about Scottish weather, so I thought it would be okay. Well, we really should have played this to begin with, to set the stage for Celtic music. So we're going to step a bit back into history for a moment, if you'll come along with me for this, to the time of the great and terrible Roman Empire. Now, the Romans are very scientific, they're extremely well organized, and they're very militant. They also happen to be taking over the entire known world. And to my knowledge, they've done a better job of that than just about any other culture did. So put yourselves in the mindset the Romans have taken over absolutely everything in their path. No one has stood before them until they get to just above where England sits today, coincidentally where Scotland is. And there they encountered a diminutive little people who had painted themselves blue with woad. And the Romans were so distressed when they tried to take over these people that instead of continuing their conquest northward, they built a wall, which is akin to the Great Wall of China. It's still there. And if you go to visit, you get just above England. I highly recommend that you visit and hike a bit along Hadrian's Wall because it's lovely. But basically the Romans said, "We've taken over the entire world, except this little bit which doesn't count. You stay on your side, we'll stay on our side. Let's call it good." And remember that these people had painted themselves blue. And so the Romans called them the Picts. And this song is from the perspective of the Picts. So this is before the Celtic nations. And I wanted to play it in the library today because the lyrics for this song were written by Rudyard Kipling, who wrote such things you might recognize as Rikki Tikki Tavi and The Jungle Book and a few other classics. Rome never looks where she treads, always a heavy foot falls on our stomachs, our hearts, and our heads. And Rome never heeds when we fall, as centuries pass on, that is all. We gather behind them in hordes and plot to reconquer the world, with only our tongues for our swords. We are the little folk, we, too little to love or to hate, but leave us alone and you'll see how we can drag down the state. We are the worm in the wood, we are the rot at the road, and we are the taint in the blood, and we are the thorn in the foot. Mistletoe killing on oak, rats gnawing cables in tow, moths making holes in a cloak. How they must love what they do, yes, and we little folk too, for we are as busy as they, working our works out of view, watching you'll see it someday. We are the little folk, we, too little to love or to hate, but leave us alone and you'll see how we can drag down the state. No, indeed, we're not strong, but we know peoples that are, and yes, we will guide them along to smash and destroy you in war. We shall be slaves just the same. When have we never been slaves? But you will die of the shame, and then we will dance on your grave. We are the little folk, we, too little to love or to hate, but leave us alone and you'll see how fast we can drag down the state. Any guesses as to this instrument? Oh, a piccolo, a flute. A flute would be off to the side. I'm cheating a bit. This was a bit of a trick question. This is a penny whistle, also known as an Irish whistle or a tin whistle, but you probably would have guessed it if I pulled out one that looked a bit more like this and sounds something like this. So I affectionately call this a nickel whistle, but they're actually both penny whistles. It's time for another toast. Here's to those that wish us well, and all the rest can go to another library. Certainly not this one. Well, here's a song that you might already know. In fact, you may have been singing this song your whole life. You probably thought it was a happy song. But this is a Scottish song, and the odds are low, actually, that it's a happy song. And this being an educational presentation, I'm bound to ruin it for you forever. So I give you another audience decision here. I can either tell you what the song is about before I play the song, or after I play the song. So all those in favor of before? All those in favor of after? Do you know, I think the befores might have it in this audience. There we go. It's a brave audience. I like that. So Scotland and England have an ongoing relationship. I think it's the nicest way to say that without offending either side. And basically what it amounts to is they keep trying to teach us a lesson, and we keep trying not to learn it. I think you can say it that way without upsetting anyone. And there was a particularly dreadful battle for us on the fields of Culloden. And they wiped the field with us. It was horrible. And they thought, well, we've taught them a lesson once and for all. But being Scottish, of course, the 16 of us left are going, get out of our country! And they said, well, we didn't teach this lesson quite as well as we thought we did. What could we do? And someone came up with an idea. They took all of the prisoners of war and they held a lottery. And if you won the lottery, then you got to go home scot-free. Have you heard that before? That's where it comes from. And if you lost the lottery, well, then they beheaded you, stuck your head on a pike, and paraded it through all the towns in northern England, and then all the towns in Scotland along the King's Road, or the High Road. And there were two brothers that fought together on the fields of Culloden, and they were both taken as prisoners of war. And one of them won the lottery, and the other one lost the lottery. You taught the road and I taught the Lord. I'll be in Scotland for you, for me and my true love, forever once again on the bonny, bonny lands of Longview. There that we parted on yon shady glen, on the steep, steep side of an lowman, where in purple hue the Highland hills with you, and the moon coming out in the glow. You taught the road and I taught the lower road. I'll be in Scotland for you, for me and my true love, forever once again, on the bonny, bonny lands of Longview. 'Twas the birdies sing and the wildflowers spring, and in sunshine the waters are sleeping, but the broken heart will come near a second spring again, and the water may cease for the great song. You taught the road and I taught the lower road. I'll be in Scotland for you, for me and my true love, forever once again, on the bonny, bonny lands of Longview. On the bonny, bonny lands of Longview. Well, I have maybe two more I'd like to slip in here. I think just don't look at your watch and we'll call it close. Because I have to do this one or you'll rebel later, I know. Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen, and turn the mountains say. The summer's gone, and all the flowers are falling. That's you, 'tis you must go and I must bide. But call me back when summer's in Longview, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. It's I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, and my soul. But should you come when all the flowers have fallen, and I am dead, as dead I may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and near and say, and Ave there for me. And I shall hear the soft yet tread upon me, and o'er my grave will one a sweeter be. For you shall hear and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me. Well, we can't end on that note. So I have one last to play for you this evening, but I do have a crass commercial announcement to make before that. So the first is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, that when I'm not playing for a Scottish festival or something else, that I like to come and play at libraries. What I didn't tell you is that my mother was a librarian. And by this point, I have played at more than 500 libraries across your country. And I have learned some very important things in this process, one of which is that you can tell a lot about the health of an entire community strictly by looking at the library that is there. And I would like to encourage you to please continue to support your local library. It makes such a difference. This library is lucky enough to have a Friends of the Library program. If you're not already a friend of the library, for shame on you, go and sign up right away. They can assist you with that at the front desk. They also have a book sale ongoing to help out with that. But libraries tend to be struggling a bit throughout the country, and you would be surprised at how desperately important they still are. They're very relevant to everyone. So think about your library and support it as you can. And the foundation. That's right, which I know nothing about, but you can ask him and he'll tell you about the foundation for the library. I assume it's another way to support the library. Excellent, all right. And then also I do happen to have some CDs and DVD and T-shirts and bumper stickers and whatnot in the back. If you feel so inclined, stop by back there. Even if you have no interest in purchasing anything, the black T-shirts on the back have the top 10 best responses to that question that I get more often than any other. So you may wish to go and read those if you're curious. And you might recall, there was another announcement I was supposed to make, but I've forgotten it entirely, so we'll just go on. You may recall that I started off this evening with a particular kind of a song. It was a sea shanty, and I thought that we could end the same way. This is my favorite shanty of all time. This is about a famous whaling ship that in her heyday was something to behold, a legend amongst ships and sailors the world over. Of course, it is Celtic music. In the long run, she was lost in the ice along with all of her crew, but this song is from before that. This song is from the heyday of the Diamond. The Diamond, there's a ship, me boys, and the never straight she's bound, and the key it has all gone a shed with bonny lasses round. The bumps bosun gives the order to sail the ocean wide, where the sunshine never sets, my lads, the darkness fills the sky. And it's cheer up, my lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship that I'm goes a-fishing for the whale. And along the quay at Peterhead, the lassies stand around, the shows will pull about them and the salt is running down. Don't you weep, my bonny lass, for you'll be left behind, for the rose will grow on Greenland's ice before we change our mind. And it's cheer up, my lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship that I'm on goes a-fishing for the whale. Here's a health to the Resolution, likewise the Eliza Swan. Here's a health to the Patter on truce with the diamond ship of pain. When we wear the trousers of the white and the jackets of the blue, and we return to Peterhead, we'll have sweethearts and all. And it's cheer up, my lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship that I'm in goes a-fishing for the whale. It's cheer up, my lads, let your hearts never fail, for the bonny ship that I'm in goes fishing for the whale. Well, thank you very much. It has been my pleasure to come and perform for you today. I did actually recall the last announcement that I was supposed to make. I'm not from here, so I don't know in which direction it lies, but apparently the local police precinct, someone has stolen the toilets. If you know anything, you're asked to report it to them because they've got nothing to go on. So, thanks again for coming, and we'll see you down the road.